The year was 1972. Los Angeles existed in a strange twilight between old Hollywood glamour and the gritty reality of a changing America. In a modest gym on the outskirts of the city, something impossible was about to happen. Two men, each a king in his own world, were about to meet in absolute secrecy. Muhammad Ali was already a household name, the Louisville Lip, the people's champion. He had shocked the world by defeating Sonny Liston, had been stripped of his title for refusing Vietnam, and was now fighting his way back to the top. Every move he made was news. Every word he spoke became a headline. Bruce Lee was different. He was famous, yes, but in a more underground way. After the Green Hornet ended, Hollywood had essentially rejected him. They loved his skills but couldn't imagine an Asian man as a leading hero. So Bruce had returned to Hong Kong, where he became a phenomenon. The Big Boss, Fist of Fury, films that shattered box office records and made him the most recognizable martial artist on the planet. But here's what nobody knew. These two giants had been watching each other for years. Ali had seen Bruce's demonstrations at martial arts tournaments. He was fascinated by the speed, the precision, the philosophy behind every movement. This wasn't just fighting, this was art. Ali, who called himself the greatest, recognized greatness when he saw it, even in a completely different form. Bruce, meanwhile, had studied Ali's fights with an intensity that bordered on obsession. He would watch the same rounds over and over, analyzing footwork, timing, the way Ali could make a 6'3" frame move like water. Bruce saw in Ali something that transcended boxing, a fighter who understood rhythm, who turned combat into a dance, who proved that speed and intelligence could defeat raw power. The meeting was arranged through a mutual friend, a Hollywood stuntman who had worked with both men. The conditions were clear. No cameras, no reporters, no witnesses beyond a handful of trusted people. Both men had too much to lose. Ali couldn't be seen learning from a martial artist. It might look like weakness. Bruce couldn't be seen courting celebrity. It might undermine his credibility as a serious martial artist. So on a Tuesday afternoon, in a gym that had agreed to close its doors for a private session, it happened. When Ali walked in, Bruce was already there, warming up with a wooden dummy. Ali's first thought, which he'd later admit to friends, was surprise at Bruce's size. Bruce Lee stood 5'7" and weighed around 135 pounds. Ali was 6'3" and 215 pounds of sculpted muscle. The size difference was almost comical. Then Bruce moved. One kick. A single spinning back kick that made the heavy bag explode with a sound like a gunshot. Ali's expression changed instantly. This little man had power that defied physics. "Brother," Ali said, his famous smile spreading across his face, "you got some explaining to do." And Bruce smiled back. "Only if you explain how a man your size moves like a lightweight." The ice was broken. For the first hour, they simply talked, not about fighting, but about everything else. Ali spoke about the burden of fame, about being expected to have an opinion on everything, about how the world wanted him to be either a saint or a villain with no room for being human. Bruce spoke about being typecast, about Hollywood's racism, about the frustration of being seen as a martial arts curiosity rather than a serious actor and philosopher. They discovered they shared the same wound. The world wanted to put them in a box, and both had spent their lives fighting to break free. Then came the exchange that would define the rest of their conversation. "You know what my problem is?" Ali asked, bouncing on his toes, demonstrating his famous Ali shuffle. "Every opponent I face, they trying to knock me out. They see the belt, they see the fame, they see the money, but they don't see the science. Boxing ain't about being tough, it's about being smart." Bruce nodded slowly. "In Chinese, we have a saying, the stiff tree breaks in the wind, but the bamboo bends and survives. You understand this already. Your style moving, dodging, waiting for the opening. This is water fighting rock." Ali's eyes lit up. "Water fighting rock. I like that. But you know what? I never seen nobody move like you move. How you generate that power from such short distance." And that's when the real session began. Bruce demonstrated what he called 1-inch punch. He held his fist 1 inch from Ali's chest and told him to brace. Ali, amused, flexed his impressive chest muscles and nodded. Bruce's fist moved barely 3 inches, and Ali stumbled backward 3 full steps, his eyes wide. "What in the— How did you—" Ali was genuinely shocked. Bruce explained the principle. It wasn't about muscle. It was about the kinetic chain, about transferring energy from the ground through the legs, the hips, the torso, and finally into the fist. Every part of the body working as one unit. In Cantonese, they called it jing. Explosive power generated through perfect coordination. Ali absorbed this like a student. He tried it himself, and Bruce corrected his form, adjusting Ali's hip rotation, his breathing, the tension in his shoulders. Within 30 minutes, Ali was generating power he'd never accessed before. Then it was Ali's turn to teach. "You fast," Ali said to Bruce. "Maybe faster than me, but you know what you're missing? You've never been hit by a man who really knows how to punch. Not kung fu punch, a boxing punch. All that power, but delivered through technique, refined over 100 years of professional fighting." Bruce's pride stung, but his curiosity was stronger. "Show me." Ali put on the gloves and taught Bruce the jab. Not the wild punches Bruce had used in movies, but the scientific jab. The weapon Ali used to measure distance, to disrupt rhythm, to set up everything else. He taught Bruce about weight transfer, about punching through the target, about the angles that maximize impact while minimizing effort. Bruce was a brilliant student. Within minutes, he was throwing jabs that made the bag dance. But more importantly, he was understanding something deeper. Boxing wasn't just Western brutality. It was its own art, its own philosophy, refined through generations of competition. In the ring, Ali explained, you can't just be fast. You gotta be unpredictable. Every move gotta have 3 purposes: offense, defense, and deception. You throw a jab not just to hit, but to hide what's coming next. Bruce's mind was racing. This aligned perfectly with his Jeet Kune Do philosophy, using the shortest, most direct path, but always being formless, adapting to the opponent. The second hour was where things got profound. They sat on the gym floor, backs against the wall, drinking water and talking about something neither of them usually discussed: fear. Ali admitted something he rarely told anyone. He was terrified before every fight, not of getting hurt, but of losing his identity. "If I lose," he said quietly, "I ain't the greatest no more. I'm just another boxer who talked too much and couldn't back it up. Everything I built, gone." Bruce understood completely. People think martial artists have no fear. They're wrong. We have fear. We just train to move through it, not around it. Fear tells you where your limits are. Then you must decide, accept the limit, or break it. Ali nodded. That's it. That's exactly it. Most fighters, they hit their limit and stop, but the great ones, we look at that wall and we say, I'm going through. They talked about pain, about discipline, about the loneliness of being at the top. Ali spoke about how everyone wanted a piece of him, how he couldn't walk down the street without being mobbed, how sometimes he just wanted to be Cassius Clay from Louisville, not Muhammad Ali the icon. Bruce spoke about the opposite problem, being invisible, how Hollywood saw him as a stuntman, a choreographer, maybe a sidekick, but never a hero. How he had to go halfway around the world to prove what he'd known all along. He was a star. "You know what's funny?" Ali said. "You want what I got? I want what you got. You want respect in America. I want the freedom to be myself without the whole world watching." Bruce laughed. A genuine bitter laugh. "Maybe we should trade places for a week." "Brother," Ali replied, "I don't think either of us would survive." As the session wound down, they made a pact. They would keep meeting, privately. No publicity, no announcements. Just 2 masters learning from each other. Ego-free zones where they could be students again. They met 3 more times over the next 18 months. Always in secret, always in private gyms or closed dojos. Each time, they pushed each other further. Ali incorporated more footwork variations, inspired by Bruce's martial arts. Bruce refined his hand speed, using boxing drills. Ali taught him, but more than technique, they gave each other something rare: permission to be human. In their worlds, they were expected to be perfect. Ali was supposed to be invincible, unshakable, always ready with a rhyme and a smile. Bruce was supposed to be the stoic warrior, the mystical master who had transcended normal human weakness. With each other, they could drop the masks. The last time they met was in early 1973. Ali was preparing for his fight against Ken Norton. Bruce was editing Enter the Dragon, the film he knew would change everything. They sparred lightly, more play than combat. Two masters who had learned to communicate through movement. At the end, Ali said something Bruce never forgot. "You know what I learned from you, man? It ain't about being the best fighter. It's about being the most complete human being. All this training, all this discipline, it ain't to beat other people. It's to beat the limitations in ourselves." Bruce bowed, a formal gesture Ali had learned to recognize as the highest form of respect. "And you taught me that confidence without arrogance is possible, that you can be great and still be humble. That strength includes the courage to learn." They never saw each other again. Bruce Lee died on July 20th, 1973, just weeks before Enter the Dragon hit theaters. He was 32 years old. The world mourned the loss of a legend who had just begun to show his full potential. When Ali heard the news, he was training for his fight against Rudy Lubbers. According to people who were there, Ali stopped mid-workout, sat down, and didn't speak for nearly an hour. Finally, he said, "The world just lost one of the realest brothers I ever met. He wasn't trying to be Chinese. He wasn't trying to be American. He was trying to be human, and he was damn good at it." Years later, in interviews, Ali would occasionally reference a martial artist friend who had influenced his thinking about speed and efficiency. He never mentioned Bruce by name, keeping his promise. In Ali's autobiography, there's a single cryptic line: "I learned from many teachers, some in the ring, some outside it. One of the greatest was a small man with the power of a giant." Bruce, in his notes and journals found after his death, had written extensively about boxing principles, always referring to the Louisville master without naming Ali. In one entry, dated March 1973, just months before his death, Bruce wrote, "True mastery is not in defeating others. True mastery is in the humility to remain a student forever. Today I am grateful for the teachers who saw me not as a competitor, but as a fellow traveler on the path." The meetings were kept secret so completely that for decades they remained rumored but unproven. Only in the late 1990s did a few witnesses begin to speak publicly, confirming what many had suspected. Two legends had recognized each other, not as rivals, but as kindred spirits. What did they give each other in those brief, secret hours? Ali left those sessions with a deeper understanding of efficiency. His later fights showed subtle changes: more angular footwork, better weight distribution, an almost martial arts-like economy of motion. He became not just fast, but precisely fast. Bruce left with something he'd been missing: the confidence that came from sparring with a true heavyweight champion and holding his own. Not because he could beat Ali in a boxing match. He couldn't, and he knew it, but because Ali treated him as an equal. That validation, from the greatest boxer in the world, gave Bruce permission to stop proving himself and start expressing himself. But beyond technique and confidence, they gave each other something rarer: friendship without agenda. In worlds where everyone wanted something from them, where every relationship was transactional, they found in each other a space of pure mutual respect. No cameras to perform for, no reputation to protect. Just two men who had dedicated their lives to perfecting their crafts, sharing what they knew with someone who could truly appreciate it. The tragedy is how brief it was. 2 years of occasional meetings, maybe 10 hours total of actual conversation and training. But those hours resonated through the rest of their lives. When people debate who would win in a fight between Bruce Lee and Muhammad Ali, they miss the point entirely. The two men already answered that question. They both won because they chose learning over ego, respect over rivalry, and friendship over competition. In a world obsessed with who's the best, they showed something more powerful: The willingness to admit you can always get better. That's the real secret of their secret meetings. Not the techniques they exchanged, but the humility they shared. Two men at the absolute top of their fields, with nothing left to prove to the world, still hungry to learn from each other. That's not just greatness. That's wisdom. And perhaps that's why they kept it secret. The world wanted them to be rivals, wanted to see them compete, wanted to reduce their relationship to a hypothetical fight, but they refused. They knew something the world didn't. True strength isn't measured by who you can defeat, but by who you can learn from. In the end, their legacy isn't just what they achieved individually. It's what they proved together, that the highest level of mastery is the humility to remain a student. The dragon and the greatest, two legends, one truth. Real power isn't about ego, it's about understanding. And for 2 secret hours in a closed gym in 1970s Los Angeles, two men who understood this better than anyone shared their knowledge with the only person who could truly appreciate it. That's the meeting the world never saw. That's the conversation that changed both men. That's the secret that defines true greatness.